I woke up to a scent that made me nauseous, sharp, expensive cologne mixed with alpha pheromones that should have been comforting, but instead left me feeling hollow and wrong. The man holding my hand, claiming to be my husband with tears in his perfect eyes, should have felt like home. Instead, my skin prickled with unease I couldn't explain. The doctor said trauma can make Omegas confused about their own mates, but deep in my gut, hey, welcome to Imagine BL Story. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really encourages my work and helps me bring you more stories. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy today's story. Underneath the 4 years of memories the accident had stolen, something whispered that this beautiful, wealthy man was not who he claimed to be. Brandon. His voice cracked with what sounded like genuine relief. Thank God, you're awake. I blinked against harsh fluorescent lights of what was clearly a private hospital room. Too luxurious to be standard care, with cream walls and artwork that probably cost more than what? Couldn't remember. That was the problem. I couldn't remember anything. My throat felt like sandpaper. Who are you? The man's face crumpled, and I felt a stab of guilt despite the wrongness crawling under my skin. He was objectively handsome. Sharp jawline, perfectly styled dark hair with silver at the temples, eyes the color of storm clouds. Everything about him screamed wealth and refinement, and everything about him made my instincts recoil. It's me, Dorian. He squeezed my hand gently, but I had to fight the urge to pull away. Your husband. You've been unconscious for 3 days. The doctor said you might not remember, but I hoped. Husband. The word felt foreign, like trying to speak a language I'd never learned. A doctor swept into the room, an older beta woman with a tablet. Her pheromones were neutral, professional, and I relaxed slightly. Mr. Torres, I'm Dr. Reeves. How are you feeling? Confused. I don't remember him. I don't remember anything. Dr. Reeves nodded as if she'd expected this. You were in an accident 3 days ago. A hit and run while you were walking home from work. You suffered severe head trauma, and you're experiencing retrograde amnesia. How much did I lose? Approximately 4 years. 4 years. 4 entire years of my life, gone like they never existed. But they'll come back, right? Dorian's voice was tight with emotion. The memories, they'll return? It's possible. Some patients recover their memories fully, others only partially, and some never do. Every case is different. I looked at Dorian, this stranger who claimed to be my husband, and tried to find anything familiar. Nothing. No recognition, no warmth, no sense of connection. Just that persistent, nagging wrongness. Can you tell me about us? About our life? Something flickered across Dorian's face. Too quick to identify. Pain? Guilt? It vanished, replaced by a tender smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. We met about 3 years ago at a networking event. You were representing the Marine Research Institute where you work. I was immediately drawn to you. We started dating and I knew within months that you were the one. We got married 2 years ago. Small ceremony, just close friends and family. It sounded plausible. It sounded like a life someone might live. But it didn't sound like my life. We live in a penthouse downtown. You love it because you can see the harbor from our bedroom window. You've been working on a coral restoration project. I wanted to feel something that would confirm his words. A flicker of recognition, a sense of rightness. Instead, I just felt increasingly uncomfortable, like wearing clothes that didn't fit. I don't remember any of that. I know. Dorian reached out as if to touch my face, then seemed to think better of it. But we'll get through this. I'll help you remember. We have photos, everything we need. Dr. Reeves cleared her throat. Mr. Torres, there's one more thing. It's not uncommon for Omegas who've experienced trauma to have complicated reactions to their bonded alphas. Your instincts may be confused right now. You might feel disconnected or even adverse to Mr. Fernandez's presence. So there was a name for this wrongness. Is that normal? It can be. The trauma disrupts your recognition of your mate. It should resolve as you heal and recover your memories. But this didn't feel like being off balance. This felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, knowing one wrong step would send me plummeting. Dorian produced a folder from his briefcase and laid out photographs on the hospital bed. Wedding photos, vacation snapshots, candid moments of 2 people who looked happy together. The Omega in the photos had my face. He was smiling, laughing, leaning into Dorian's embrace. He looked content, loved. He looked nothing like how I felt right now. See? This is us. This is our life. I know you can't remember, but it's real, Brandon. We're real. I stared at the photos, trying to find myself in that smiling Omega's eyes, trying to reconcile the evidence with the alarm bells ringing in my head. Dorian pulled out a document, a marriage certificate. Brandon Torres and Dorian Fernandez, married 2 years ago. Everything in this room confirmed what he was telling me. The photos, the certificate, the doctor's explanation, Dorian's obvious distress. Logic said I should believe him, but my Omega instincts, the primal, visceral part of me that was supposed to recognize my mate above all else, were singing a different song entirely. I'd like to go home, to the penthouse. Relief flooded Dorian's features. Of course, I'll handle the discharge paperwork. We can leave within the hour. As he stepped out to speak with Dr. Reeves, I was left alone with the photographs scattered across my hospital bed. I picked up one, our wedding day apparently, Dorian in an elegant suit, me in soft gray, both of us smiling at the camera. I brought the photo closer, studying every detail, looking for proof, looking for truth. And then I noticed it, something so subtle I almost missed it. In the photo, Dorian's hand rested on my shoulder, a possessive, loving gesture that should have looked natural. But the way my body angled in the image, the slight tension in my shoulders, the way my smile didn't quite reach my eyes, it looked like I was trying not to flinch. I set the photo down with shaking hands, my heart pounding. Maybe Dr. Reeves was right. Maybe trauma was making me paranoid, making me see shadows where there were none. Or maybe, and this thought terrified me more than the blank space where my memories should be, maybe my body was trying to tell me something my broken mind couldn't remember. When Dorian returned with a wheelchair and a gentle smile, I let him help me into it. I let him guide me through the pristine hallways, past nurses who smiled knowingly at the devoted husband. I let him help me into a sleek black car as we headed home. But I made myself a silent promise, to never forget that something was wrong, and to find out what was going on. When we got to the penthouse, it was exactly as Dorian had described, but I felt nothing. No sense of familiarity. "Take your time," Dorian said, setting my hospital bag by the door. His pheromones spiked with something I couldn't identify, anxiety, maybe, or guilt. "I know it's overwhelming. You should rest." I nodded, moving slowly through the living room, trailing my fingers along surfaces that should have been familiar. The leather couch, the marble countertops, the abstract painting above the fireplace. Nothing triggered even the faintest whisper of recognition. "Your room is down the hall. Our room. But I've been sleeping in the guest room since the accident. I thought you'd be more comfortable with space." Relief flooded through me so strongly I almost sagged. "Thank you." Something painful crossed his face, but he masked it with a tight smile. "I'll make us some tea. You should look around, reacquaint yourself." As he disappeared into the kitchen, I wandered deeper. Every room was immaculate, decorated with expensive taste. But nothing felt like mine. No clutter, no personal chaos, no lived-in warmth. Like walking through a showroom. The bedroom was worse. Massive king-sized bed with silk sheets, walk-in closet full of clothes I apparently owned but didn't recognize. I picked it up, studying it closely. Same as the wedding photo. Something about my posture seemed off, like I was performing rather than living. That night, exhausted and overwhelmed, I collapsed into bed fully clothed. Sleep came quickly. My dream came in fragments. Strong hands, calloused and warm, different from Dorian's smooth palms. A deep laugh that made my chest feel full instead of tight. "Come on. Let me show you something." The click of a camera shutter. Salt air and sunshine. Arms wrapping around me from behind while I examined tide pools. A voice, low and rough with affection. "You're beautiful when you're excited about tiny shrimp." My own laugh, genuine and free. "They're not shrimp, they're—" "I know. Amphipods. You've told me 100 times." Lips pressing against my temple. A scent washing over me. Sun-warmed sand, darkroom chemicals, safety, home, everything right in the world. I woke gasping, tears on my face, my heart aching for something I couldn't name. The scent from my dream lingered in my mind, so vivid I could almost smell it. Warm and grounding and nothing like the sharp cologne that permeated this penthouse. By morning I found Dorian in the kitchen, already dressed and making breakfast. He looked up when I entered, expression carefully neutral. "Coffee, please." We sat at the dining table in uncomfortable silence. Dorian kept his distance, never getting close enough for his pheromones to overwhelm me. I appreciated it, but I also noticed the way his hands trembled slightly, the dark circles under his eyes. Did you sleep? Not much. He offered a wan smile. I keep thinking about the accident. If I'd been there, if I'd walked you home like I usually do. It wasn't your fault. Wasn't it? You're my Omega. I should have protected you. The possessive language made my skin prickle, but the raw pain in his voice was undeniable. Whatever else was true, Dorian was suffering. Over the next few days, I explored the penthouse more thoroughly. Dorian gave me space, leaving for work each morning and returning in the evening with careful courtesy. He never pushed, never demanded affection, always maintained respectful distance. But I caught him sometimes, staring at his phone with such profound sadness it made my chest ache. Once, I heard him on the phone in his office, door not quite closed. I know, I miss you too. Just a little longer, please. When I asked about it, he said it was a work call. His scent said otherwise. The photo albums Dorian showed me told a story of a relationship I couldn't remember living. Beach vacations, formal events, quiet dinners, holidays with his family. I studied each image, searching for truth. The Omega in the photo smiled, but never quite with his whole face. You were always camera shy, Dorian explained when I mentioned it. You never liked having your picture taken. But in my dream, there had been a camera. And I'd been laughing. My body's rejection of Dorian didn't improve. If anything, it intensified. Whenever he got too close, nausea rolled through me. His pheromones made my head pound. At night, alone in our bedroom, I'd press my face into the pillows and search desperately for any scent that felt right. There was nothing, just expensive detergent and emptiness. On the fourth day, Dorian brought home my things from work, a box of research notes, photos of coral reefs, marine biology textbooks. I flipped through them, desperate for connection to my past. You were working on a coral restoration project. Something about warming waters and bleaching. You were passionate about it. I stared at the images of dying coral, and something tugged at my memory. Not quite a recollection, just a feeling. This mattered. This was important. Can I go back? To the institute. The doctor said you should rest for at least 2 weeks. Your body needs time to heal, Brandon. He was probably right. But being trapped in this perfect, alien penthouse was suffocating me. That evening, while Dorian was in the shower, I wandered the halls restlessly. I'd explored most of the penthouse except for one room. A door at the end of the hallway that was always closed. I tried the handle. Locked. Brandon. I spun around. Dorian stood at the end of the hall, hair still damp, wearing a robe. His expression was carefully blank, but his pheromones spiked with sharp alarm. I gestured at the door. What's in here? My office. He moved closer, and I instinctively stepped back. Hurt flashed across his face. I keep it locked because there are confidential work documents. Photography contracts. Client information. Photography? I thought you worked in... What do you do? Commercial and artistic photography. Freelance, mostly corporate work now. He ran a hand through his wet hair. You really don't remember any of this? No. I don't remember you. I don't remember this place. I don't remember our life together. And I don't understand why my body feels wrong every time you're near me. Silence stretched between us, heavy and uncomfortable. I'm sorry. That was harsh. No. You're right. This must be terrifying for you. I'm a stranger wearing the face of someone you're supposed to love. He turned away. I'll leave you alone. But Brandon, that room stays locked. Please respect that. He walked away before I could respond, leaving me alone in the hallway, staring at the locked door. Something was in there, something important, and I was going to find out what. By the end of the first week, the penthouse walls felt like they were closing in. Dorian had left early for a client meeting, and I couldn't stand another hour trapped in that beautiful prison. I needed air, space, something real. The city stretched out before me as I stepped onto the street, overwhelming in its noise and movement. I wondered if any of these people had known me before, if I'd walked these same streets with purpose and belonging instead of this hollow confusion. I headed toward the harbor. Dorian had mentioned I loved the ocean. Maybe being near water would trigger something. The waterfront was busy with tourists and locals, the smell of salt air mixing with street food and exhaust. I found a bench overlooking the water and sat, watching boats drift across the harbor. That's when the sensation hit me. The hair on the back of my neck stood up, my Omega instincts suddenly alert. I was being watched. Not casual glances, but focused attention that made my skin prickle. I turned slowly, scanning the crowd. There, about 50 feet away, partially hidden by tourists, a figure stood perfectly still while the world moved around him. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a jacket and jeans that contrasted sharply with the designer clothes I'd grown accustomed to seeing on Dorian. Our eyes met for a fraction of a second. Even from this distance, I felt something shift in my chest. Not the wrongness that came with Dorian's presence, but something else. Something that made my breath catch and my heart race for entirely different reasons. The man's expression was naked with emotion. Pain, longing, something desperate and raw. Then his face crumpled, and he turned away, disappearing into the crowd. Wait! I was on my feet before I realized I'd moved, pushing through the tourists. Please wait! But he was gone, vanished as if he'd never been there. I stood in the middle of the crowded waterfront, my heart pounding, searching desperately. Nothing. Just strangers and the sound of water lapping against the dock. Who was that? And why did seeing him feel like remembering something crucial I'd forgotten? I returned to the penthouse shaken. The image of that man's face burned into my mind. The raw anguish in his eyes haunted me. He'd looked at me like I was something precious he'd lost, like I was breaking his heart just by existing. That night, the dreams came stronger than before. Hold still. You've got sand in your hair. Gentle fingers combing through my hair, patient and tender. I leaned back against a solid chest, feeling arms wrap around me. Safe. So completely safe. I've got you. Always. You know that, right? I know. I've always known. A kiss pressed to the top of my head. That scent washing over me. Sun-warmed sand. Something chemical but pleasant. Safety and home. My brave Omega. My brilliant Brandon. I turned in those arms, looking up at a face I couldn't quite see, features blurred by dream logic. But I could see the eyes warm, genuine, looking at me like I hung the moon. I woke with tears streaming down my face, and that scent so vivid in my mind it felt real. Sun-warmed sand and darkroom chemicals and something indefinably right. I sat up in bed, my chest aching with loss for something I couldn't figure out. Someone had held me like that, and my body remembered. My Omega instincts remembered. The next morning, while Dorian was at work, I opened my laptop and started searching. Retrograde amnesia, Omega bonding, alpha mate recognition. I devoured article after article, desperate for answers. What I found made my blood run cold. Multiple studies confirmed what I'd suspected. Bonded Omegas rarely rejected their true alpha scent, even with severe memory loss. The bond operated on an instinctual level that transcended conscious memory. Omegas who'd forgotten their mates' faces, names, even years of their relationship, still responded to their alpha's pheromones with recognition and comfort. The rejection only occurred in cases of trauma associated with the alpha, or when the bond itself was damaged or false. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. Dr. Reeves had said my adverse reaction to Dorian was normal. But these studies suggested otherwise. They suggested that my Omega instincts were trying to tell me something crucial. That Dorian wasn't my alpha. That everything I'd been told was a lie. But if Dorian wasn't my husband, then who was? And why would he pretend? The photos, the marriage certificate, the hospital records, everything confirmed our relationship. I thought about the locked study, about Dorian's careful distance and the phone calls he took in private, about the way he looked at his phone with such profound sadness, about the man at the waterfront who'd looked at me like his heart was breaking. I needed answers, real answers, not the carefully constructed story Dorian had fed me. That evening, when Dorian came home, I watched him more carefully. The way he moved through the penthouse like he was performing a role. The way his smiles never quite reached his eyes. The way he kept his phone close and angled away from me. "How was your day?" he asked. The same careful courtesy as always. "Fine." I walked to the harbor. I thought being near the ocean might help with my memories. Something flickered across his face. Alarm? Did it? No. Nothing yet. I lied easily, surprising myself. Relief flooded his expression, quickly hidden. "It takes time. Don't push yourself." After dinner, Dorian excused himself to his locked office. I heard the door close, the lock click. 30 minutes later, I heard his voice through the door. Low, intense, emotional. "I can't keep doing this. Yes, I know what's at stake. Christian. Please." Christian. The same name from before. Not a work colleague. Someone Dorian was desperate to talk to. someone who made his voice crack with genuine emotion. I pressed my ear against the door, heart pounding. She's threatening everything. If I don't, I know you're falling apart. I'm trying to find a way out. I swear. I love you. God. I miss you so much. The words were saturated with more feeling than I'd ever heard from Dorian when he spoke to me. I backed away from the door, my mind racing. Dorian was in love with someone named Christian. Dorian was trapped in this situation somehow, threatened by someone. And I was a pawn in whatever game was being played. But why? Why me? Why this elaborate pretense? I returned to my room and searched through drawers until I found what I was looking for. A set of thin metal nail files. Tomorrow, when Dorian left for work, I would find out what he was hiding. Even if it meant discovering I was living in a carefully constructed lie. I deserved to know who I really was, who I really loved, and who had loved me enough to promise they'd never let me forget. The man at the waterfront, the scent in my dreams, the rejection of Dorian's touch. My body was trying to tell me the truth. It was time I started listening. The next morning, I woke early, determined to pick the lock on Dorian's study. But before I could attempt it, Dorian knocked on my bedroom door, expression strained. My mother wants to see you. She's invited us for dinner tonight. My stomach dropped. Your mother, Vivian. She's been persistent about meeting with you since the accident. I've been putting her off, but she won't take no for an answer anymore. Something in his tone made my instincts flare with warning. Do I have a choice? Not really. The resignation in his voice was answer enough. She's formidable. It's better to just comply. That evening, we drove to an estate that made the penthouse look modest. The Fernandez family home was all old money and intimidation. Sprawling grounds, imposing architecture, staff who moved like ghosts through marble hallways. Vivian Fernandez waited in a dining room that could seat 20, though only 3 places were set. She was exactly what I'd imagined. Perfectly coiffed silver hair, designer gown, cold eyes that assessed me like livestock. Brandon, how wonderful to see you up and about. We were so worried. Were you? I thought but didn't say. Thank you, Mrs. Fernandez. Please, call me Vivian. She gestured to a chair. Sit, darling. You must tell me how you're recovering. Dinner was an exercise in performance. Vivian dominated the conversation, speaking about charity galas and society functions, dropping names like breadcrumbs. She kept touching my hand, my shoulder, steering me through topics like I was a puppet. Brandon has always been so humble, so refreshingly modest compared to these modern Omegas who forget their place. Don't you agree, darling? My place? I smiled blandly. I try my best. And so dedicated to Dorian. Such a dutiful husband. Even with the memory loss, I can see you still have that gentle, accommodating nature. It's what made you perfect for our family. That's very kind. Dorian sat rigid throughout the meal, barely touching his food. I noticed Vivian watching him too, her expression sharpening whenever he seemed about to speak. You must be so grateful to have Dorian taking care of you. Not every alpha would be so patient with an Omega who can't even remember their marriage. You're very lucky. Lucky. Yes, that's exactly what I feel. I am aware. Something flickered in Vivian's eyes. Satisfaction, maybe, or possession. She patted my hand like I was a particularly obedient pet. The whole evening felt like a test I was failing in ways I couldn't understand. Vivian spoke about me, around me, occasionally to me, but always as if I were something to be managed rather than a person. And through it all, I smiled and nodded and played the role of the meek, grateful Omega. On the drive home, Dorian was silent, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Your mother is a nightmare? He laughed bitterly. You can say it. You used to. I turned to him sharply. I used to. He froze, realizing his mistake. I mean, I assume you found her difficult. Most people do. But that wasn't what he'd said. He'd said I used to, implying I'd met her before. Before the accident that supposedly left me unable to remember the past 4 years. Before I'd supposedly married Dorian. The inconsistency nagged at me all night. The next morning I finally had my chance. Dorian left early for a shoot, and I was alone with my makeshift lock picks and determination. The lock was simpler than I'd feared. After 20 minutes of fumbling, I heard the click. The study was smaller than I'd expected, lined with photographs and equipment. But it was the desk that drew me. Covered in papers, a laptop, and a locked drawer. I searched through everything. Photography contracts, client emails, nothing that explained the secrecy. Then I found a book on the shelf, Environmental Photography, with pages that didn't quite close flush. Inside, pressed between images of dying coral reefs, was a key. My hands trembled as I used it on the desk drawer. It opened to reveal a phone. Not Dorian's regular one, but a second device. A burner phone. Before I could examine it, my own phone buzzed. A text from Dorian. Coming home early. Shoot cancelled. I shoved everything back, locked the drawer, returned the key, and barely made it out before I heard the elevator arrive. Brandon, Dorian called out. In here, I answered from the living room, my heart racing. Just reading. He appeared in the doorway, and something about his expression made me think he knew. But he just nodded, exhaustion written across his face. That afternoon, claiming cabin fever, I convinced Dorian to let me visit the Marine Research Institute where I supposedly worked. He seemed reluctant but finally agreed. The institute was exactly as I'd seen in the photos. Modern building on the waterfront, aquarium tanks visible through windows, the smell of salt water and science. Walking through those doors felt surreal, like visiting a museum of someone else's life. My colleagues greeted me with careful enthusiasm that felt rehearsed. They showed me my office, my research notes, the coral restoration project I'd apparently been passionate about. We've missed you, a woman named Dr. Sarah Jung said. She was young, with kind eyes that kept darting to Dorian nervously. Everyone's been so worried. Thank you. I picked up a photo from my desk. Me in diving gear, examining coral samples. Can you tell me about the project? She launched into an explanation that sounded practiced, too smooth. But then her phone buzzed, and she glanced at it, her expression flickering with something. Sadness? Sympathy? I'm sorry. I need to take this. It's Scott calling about the... She stopped abruptly, her face going pale. I mean, it's about the equipment order. For the lab. Scott. The name hit me like electricity. Who's Scott? I asked carefully. No one. Just a vendor. But her sense spiked with anxiety, and she wouldn't meet my eyes. Excuse me. She fled, leaving me standing in an office that should have been mine, with a name echoing in my mind that felt significant in ways I couldn't explain. That night, another dream came, more vivid than before. Hands covered in seawater, examining tide pools. Look at this one. My own voice excited. A camera shutter clicking. Beautiful. The amphipod? You. Always you. A laugh warm and genuine. I woke with tears on my face and the certainty that Scott, whoever he was, mattered. He mattered more than anything. The next morning, while Dorian was in the shower, I heard his phone buzz repeatedly. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. The screen showed a text from Mother. Is he still compliant? We can't afford mistakes. And Dorian's response. He doesn't remember anything, but Christian is falling apart. I can't keep doing this. My blood ran cold. When Dorian emerged, I was waiting. Who's Christian? He froze, water still dripping from his hair. What? Christian. You keep mentioning someone named Christian. Who is he? A work colleague. Just someone I collaborate with on projects. You're lying. Brandon. Your scent gives you away every time you lie. You're trapped in this too, aren't you? Whatever this is, you didn't choose it any more than I did. For a moment I thought he might confess. His expression crumpled, vulnerability bleeding through. Then his phone rang. Mother flashing on the screen. And just like that, the walls came back up. I need to take this. He left me standing there, more certain than ever that nothing about my life was what it seemed. Tomorrow I would find out what he was hiding. The morning after Dorian left for his shoot, I stood outside the study door with the key clutched in my sweating palm. My hands shook as I unlocked it. This time I knew exactly what I was looking for. The desk drawer opened easily. Inside sat the burner phone, but beneath it was something else. A small wooden box, worn at the edges, clearly well used and cherished. I lifted it out and opened the lid. Letters. Dozens of them, handwritten on simple paper, tied with string. I pulled one out at random. Dorian, I know you think you're protecting me by staying away, but it's killing me. Every day without you feels like drowning. Please, we'll find another way. I love you. Christian. My chest tightened. The raw emotion in those words was everything I'd never heard in Dorian's voice when he spoke to me. I read more. A year's worth of correspondence between two people who loved each other with the kind of intensity that couldn't be faked. Beneath the letters were photographs, not the polished professional kind, but candid shots. Dorian and another man. A handsome alpha with warm eyes and an easy smile. In every image, Dorian looked alive in a way I'd never seen. Laughing, relaxed, loved. This was real. The burner phone came alive when I touched it. No password. I opened the messages. Dorian to mother, he still doesn't remember. How much longer? Christian is falling apart. Mother, as long as necessary. You know what's at stake. Dorian, this is wrong. He doesn't deserve this. Mother, he's an Omega with no family and no connections. He's perfect for our purposes. My vision blurred. I scrolled further back, finding worse. Mother, confirmed clean hit. No witnesses. The driver has been paid and relocated. Brandon Torres will wake up with no memory, and you'll finally be the son I raised you to be. Clean hit. Paid driver. No accident orchestrated. They tried to kill me, or at least hurt me badly enough to erase my memories. And it had worked. Wow, you've made it this far. If you're enjoying the story and still haven't subscribed, please take a second to do so. It means a lot. Also, drop a comment and let us know where you're listening from. Alright, let's get back to the story. I fumbled through the rest of the drawer with numb fingers. More photos, legal documents, and then an old environmental magazine, pages worn from handling. I opened it to a marked article. Illegal fishing operation exposed through unlikely partnership. Photo byline, Dorian Fernandez. Scientific consultation, Brandon Torres, marine biologist. 4 years ago. We'd worked together 4 years ago. Not as husbands, as colleagues, professional acquaintances on a single project. Vivian had chosen me because we had a documented connection. Real enough to make the forgery believable, distant enough that few would question it. The newspaper clipping was tucked in the magazine's back pages. My accident. And in the margin, in elegant handwriting, confirmed clean hit. No witnesses. Everything, the marriage, the photos, the elaborate life story, all lies. But why? What did they gain from? The elevator dinged. My heart stopped. Dorian wasn't supposed to be home for hours. Brandon. His voice carried from the living room. I forgot my backup camera. Are you? He appeared in the study doorway and froze. I stood behind his desk, the box open, letters scattered, the burner phone displaying his mother's confession. The magazine lay open to our real history, the only truth in this house of lies. The color drained from Dorian's face. Brandon, I can. Don't. My voice came out steady despite the rage shaking through me. Don't you dare try to explain this away. Please, just listen. You lied. Your mother tried to kill me. Orchestrated the accident, paid someone to run me down, and you helped her trap me here. I know. Dorian's voice cracked. I know, and I'm so sorry. Sorry? You let me believe I was broken, that something was wrong with me. You watched me suffer every single day and said nothing. My mother threatened Christian. She said she'd destroy him, ruin his family, end his career. I was trying to find a way out. By ruining my life? By keeping me prisoner? No, by gathering evidence. Why do you think I kept all of this? The letters, the photos, the phone? I've been documenting everything. Building a case against her. I've been searching for... He stopped abruptly. For what? For who? Dorian's face crumpled. For Scott. Your real alpha. The person you actually love. The name made my heart skip a beat. Scott. The man from the waterfront. The scent in my dreams. The voice promising never to let me forget. Where is he? What did your mother do to him? She showed him forged messages. Made him think you'd chosen me, that you wanted him to leave you alone. He's been watching from a distance. Unable to leave the city. Unable to stay away. I've been trying to find him, to tell him the truth. But my mother has people watching me. Watching you. I couldn't risk. How long were you going to let this go on? I was going to tell you. I swear. I just needed more evidence. Enough to guarantee my mother couldn't hurt Christian or Scott or you. You're not my husband. This isn't my home. And I am done being your mother's puppet. Where are you going? To find the truth. To find Scott. To find myself. My mother will. I don't care what your mother will do. I'd rather face her wrath than spend one more second in this beautiful cage. I walked out, leaving Dorian broken in the doorway, surrounded by the evidence of his betrayal and his complicated attempt at redemption. The truth was finally mine. Now I just had to figure out what to do with it. The cold air hit my face as I stepped out of the building, the evidence clutched against my chest. For the first time since waking in that hospital, I could breathe. I flagged down a taxi, my hands still shaking. The waterfront, near the research institute. If Scott had been watching me, maybe I could find him there. A black SUV came out of nowhere. It cut across 2 lanes, forcing our taxi to brake hard. I lurched forward, barely catching myself. Before I could process what was happening, the back door flew open and hands grabbed me. No! I struggled, kicking, clawing. Let me go! The evidence scattered across the taxi floor as they dragged me out. I watched in horror as one of the suited men calmly gathered the letters, the photos, the burner phone. Every piece of truth I'd found, confiscated in seconds. "Ma'am wants to see you," one of them said flatly, shoving me toward the SUV. I fought. God, I fought. But there were 3 of them, all alphas, all trained for exactly this. Within moments I was in the back seat. A hand clamped over my mouth. The door locks engaging like a prison cell closing. The SUV didn't take me back to the penthouse. It headed toward the estate, toward Vivian's territory, where she held absolute control. They brought me to a study that made Dorian's locked room look quaint. Dark wood, expensive leather, walls lined with photographs of Vivian with politicians, businesspeople, anyone who mattered. A monument to power. Vivian sat behind a massive desk, the evidence I'd gathered spread before her like paperwork. She didn't look up when they shoved me into the chair across from her. Dorian stood by the window, his face ashen. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Brandon." Vivian finally looked at me, her expression pleasant. Like we were having tea. "I'm disappointed. I thought we had an understanding after our dinner. You tried to kill me. You orchestrated an accident to erase my memories and trap me in a fake marriage." Orchestrated is such a harsh word. I solved a problem. My son was throwing his life away on an inappropriate relationship with an alpha, and you were a convenient solution. An omega with no family, no connections. No one who would miss you. Perfect, really? The casual cruelty stole my breath. You were never supposed to remember. The doctors assured me the amnesia would be permanent. She gestured to the evidence. "I've had the penthouse monitored since you arrived. Audio, video. I knew the moment you entered Dorian's study." Dorian flinched but said nothing. "So here we are. You've discovered the truth. And now you think you can do what exactly? Expose me?" "Yes. No one will believe anything. I own the doctors who treated you, the hospital administrators, the lawyers who filed your marriage certificate. Every single person who could corroborate your story is on my payroll." My chest tightened. "If you try to claim this marriage is fake, I'll have you declared mentally unstable. Retrograde amnesia causing delusions. Very tragic. You'll spend the rest of your life in a facility while Dorian grieves his mentally ill husband. That's insane. That's power. And speaking of power, let's discuss your photographer friend. Scott, isn't it?" My blood turned to ice. "He's been quite persistent, watching from a distance, unable to stay away despite thinking you'd abandoned him. Pathetic, really?" Vivian picked up her phone. "It would be such a shame if he had an accident. A real one this time. Perhaps his car's brakes fail. Or maybe a mugging gone wrong. Don't." The word came out broken. "Please don't hurt him. That depends entirely on you. You will return to the penthouse. You will continue playing the role of Dorian's recovering husband. You will stop investigating, stop asking questions. And if you comply, Scott lives. Christian's family remains safe. Everyone continues their unremarkable little lives. And if I don't, then I finish what I started. Only this time, I'll make sure the accident is fatal. For Scott first, so you can live with that guilt. Then Christian's parents. And finally, if you're still being difficult, you." The room spun. Couldn't breathe. "Mother," Dorian's voice cracked. "You can't. I can do whatever is necessary to protect this family. You've been soft, Dorian. Sentimental. It's why we're in this situation." She stood, smoothing her suit. "My men will take you back to the penthouse. You'll rest, recover, and remember your place. And Dorian will remember his. Won't you, darling?" Dorian looked at me finally, anguish in his eyes. But he nodded. "Yes, mother." "Excellent." Vivian walked to the door, then paused. "Oh, and Brandon? I'll be watching. Always. One misstep, and Scott dies screaming. Do we understand each other?" I couldn't speak, could only nod, defeated. She left, taking the evidence with her, leaving me trapped in a nightmare with no escape. The silence after she left was suffocating. Dorian moved toward me, but I held up a shaking hand. Don't. Brandon, I'm so sorry. She's going to kill him. If I do anything, she'll kill Scott. And Christian. And I can't be responsible for that. She doesn't know everything. Dorian knelt in front of me, urgent and desperate. I've been more careful than she thinks. I have backup copies of everything stored offsite with people she doesn't know about. Evidence she can't confiscate. I looked at him through tears. What good does that do? The moment we move, she'll know. Not if we're smart. I know where Scott is. I've been tracking him, gathering my own evidence. My mother thinks she has all the power, but she doesn't know about my connections. People who owe me favors. It won't matter. She'll kill them. Not if we move fast enough. Not if we expose everything at once, publicly, where she can't silence it. I've been planning this for months. I just needed you to know the truth first. I needed you to choose to fight. I stared at him. This alpha who'd lied to me, trapped me, but who'd also been trapped himself. Who loved someone the way I apparently loved Scott. If we do this and fail, everyone dies. If we do nothing, you live in a cage forever. Scott spends his life watching from a distance. Christian and I never see each other again. My mother wins. He was right. God help me, he was right. What do we do? For the first time since I'd woken in that hospital, Dorian smiled. Not the careful, performed smile, but something real and fierce. We burn her empire to the ground. Back at the penthouse, Dorian moved differently. The careful performance was gone, replaced by focused urgency. He swept the rooms with a small device, checking for cameras and listening equipment. She thinks she has eyes everywhere, he muttered, disabling 2 hidden cameras. Then he led me to the bathroom, the one room he was certain remained unmonitored. We sat on the floor, backs against the tub, speaking in hushed voices like conspirators. I need you to understand something, Dorian said. I never wanted to hurt you. When my mother first proposed this plan, I refused. But then she showed me what she'd do to Christian. Threatened to plant evidence of fraud, destroy everything he'd built, ruin his family's reputation. So you agreed to trap me instead. I agreed to buy time. Dorian pulled out a laptop from behind the bathroom vanity. I've been documenting everything. Recorded conversations with my mother. Financial transactions showing payments to the hospital staff, the driver who hit you, and the forgers who created our marriage documents. He opened files showing me an evidence trail that was damning and thorough. Why didn't you use this before? Because I needed ironclad proof. But also because I needed to find Scott. I needed to give you back what she took. Not just your memories, but your life. Your choice. Something shifted in my chest. Dorian wasn't my alpha, nor would he ever be my mate. But he was an ally forged in shared desperation. Tell me about Scott. Dorian's expression softened. He's a freelance photographer. Environmental work, the same field where you two met 3 years ago. He's been living in a studio apartment about 2 miles from here, taking odd jobs but never leaving the city. I've seen him watching the building, watching you. He can't stay away. My chest ached with longing for someone I couldn't fully remember. As Dorian spoke, memories surfaced. Sharper now, less fragmented. Scott's hands, calloused from handling camera equipment, were gentle when they touched my face. His laugh, deep and unguarded. The way he'd pull me close after a long day, his pheromones wrapping around me like the safest blanket. Sun-warmed sand and darkroom chemicals and home. Promise me you'll always come back to me, I'd said once, in the darkness of our tiny apartment. Always. Even if the whole world tried to keep us apart, I'd find you. I came back to the present with tears streaming down my face. He kept his promise. He's been trying to find me. He never stopped loving you, the way Christian never stopped loving me. That's why we're going to end this. A soft knock at the door made us both freeze. Dorian checked his phone. A text from an unknown number. It's me. Let me in. We don't have much time. Christian, Dorian breathed. He was nothing like I'd imagined. Where Dorian was refined elegance, Christian was solid practicality. Broad-shouldered, wearing jeans and an MIT hoodie, with warm brown eyes that locked onto Dorian the moment the door opened. The way they looked at each other made my heart ache. Christian crossed the threshold and pulled Dorian into his arms. Dorian melted into him, fingers clutching Christian's hoodie like a lifeline, his face buried in Christian's neck. Christian's hand cradled the back of Dorian's head, holding him close, whispering something I couldn't hear. They stood there, wrapped around each other, breathing each other in like they'd been drowning and finally found air. I cleared my throat awkwardly. They broke apart reluctantly, Christian's hand lingering on Dorian's face for a moment before he turned to me, cheeks slightly flushed. Brandon, I'm sorry we're meeting like this. You're risking a lot coming here. So are you. So is Dorian. He pulled a folder from his bag. I've been making my own preparations. I have legal contacts, former MIT colleagues who owe me favors, people outside Vivian's reach. Civil rights lawyers who specialize in Omega protection cases. If we move fast and expose everything simultaneously, she won't have time to retaliate. We spread out in the bathroom. 3 people who should never have been connected, brought together by one woman's cruelty. Christian laid out legal options. Dorian showed his evidence. I provided my perspective. Together, we built a plan. Coordinated exposure through multiple channels simultaneously. Legal filings, media contacts from Scott's photography network, evidence dumps to journalists Vivian didn't control. We hit her from every direction at once, Christian said. She can't silence all of us if we move together. There's one thing, Dorian said, looking at me. Before we execute this, you need to see Scott. You need to know what you're fighting for is real. My instincts hummed with anticipation and terror. What if my body is wrong? What if the memories are just wishful thinking? Then you'll know. But Brandon, I've seen how you react to me versus how you talk about him. Trust yourself. Christian pulled up an address on his phone. Scott's studio. He's there now. I can take you. Vivian's people are watching Dorian, but they don't know about me yet. I stared at the address, my heart hammering. Everything came down to this. If my instincts were right, if Scott was truly my alpha, then we had a chance. If I was wrong, but I couldn't live in this cage anymore. Take me to him. 30 minutes later, I stood outside a converted warehouse building, Christian beside me for support. My hands shook as I stared at the buzzer for Unit 304. You've got this. Trust what your body tells you. I pressed the button. Silence. Then, hello. A voice rough with exhaustion and hope and pain. Every cell in my body ignited with recognition. Scott, I whispered. It's Brandon. Please, I need to see you. The longest pause of my life. Then the door buzzed open. I climbed the stairs on trembling legs, Christian staying back to give me privacy. Each step felt like walking toward something inevitable, terrifying, essential. The door to 304 opened before I could knock. And there he was, tall, broad-shouldered, exactly like the figure I'd seen at the waterfront. But up close, I could see the exhaustion carved into his face, the dark circles under his eyes, the way he swayed slightly like he hadn't slept in days. His clothes were rumpled, his hair unkempt. He looked like a man barely surviving. Our eyes met, and then his scent hit me. Sun-warmed sand, darkroom chemicals, safety, home, truth. Every instinct I possessed roared to life, screaming recognition so fierce it brought me to my knees. This was my alpha. This was home. Brandon. Scott's voice broke. God, Brandon, I thought I'd lost you. He caught me as I collapsed, strong arms wrapping around me exactly like in my dreams. And I was crying, sobbing into his chest while his scent surrounded me like the answer to every question I'd been asking. My body had known all along. I was finally home. Scott held me tight, almost bruising. His apartment was small, cluttered with camera equipment and photographs pinned to every wall. But it smelled like him, like us, like the life I'd forgotten. I need to tell you everything, he said, his voice rough. I need you to understand what happened. We sat on his worn couch, and he pulled out a box filled with real memories. Our memories. After the accident, I got messages from your phone. They said you'd realized you made a mistake, that you'd been seeing Dorian, that you wanted to be with him instead, that I should leave you alone. His hands trembled, but it didn't make sense. We were happy. We were planning to complete our bond. He showed me his phone, the forged messages cruel and cold, nothing like how I would speak. I tried to see you at the hospital, but they said only family. Dorian showed up, claiming to be your husband with paperwork to prove it. I thought I was going insane. How could you be married when we'd been living together for 2 years? 2 years, I whispered. The number felt right in a way Dorian's timeline never had. I hired a private investigator, but every document confirmed the marriage. But I'm a photographer. I know how to doctor images. So I started watching, documenting everything. I couldn't stay away, even though I thought I'd lost you. He spread photographs across the coffee table, hundreds of them. Me leaving the penthouse always alone. Me at the waterfront, looking lost. Me with Dorian. The body language telling the story. Constant distance, careful separation, nothing suggesting intimacy or love. You never accepted him. I could see it. That's when I knew something was wrong. As he spoke, memories crashed through me in waves. Not fragments anymore, but full, vivid recollections. Our first meeting at the environmental conference. The way his pheromones had wrapped around me, and I'd known, instantly, completely, that this alpha was mine. Moving in together after 6 months. The tiny apartment we could barely afford, but it had never mattered. The day he'd asked if I wanted to complete our bond. There's no rush. I just want you to know I'm ready whenever you are. For everything. Forever. I said yes. We were supposed to bond. I gasped. That weekend after I got the permanent position. September 15th. You were hit on September 8th. 1 week before. Vivian had known. She'd acted before we could complete a bond that would have been impossible to fake or break. Scott pulled me closer, and I buried my face in his neck, breathing in the scent that finally made sense. Our partial bond hummed to life, recognizing what had always been true. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I forgot you. You didn't forget. Your body remembered. Even when they tried to erase me, some part of you held on. Then Scott's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. They know you're here. She's coming. Dorian. He's warning us. Scott was already moving, grabbing camera equipment. Then we end this now. Christian said he'd have lawyers and media ready. Scott. I've spent 8 months watching from the shadows, documenting everything. I'm not hiding anymore. And neither are you. 20 minutes later, we heard vehicles outside. Scott had set up cameras at multiple angles, live streaming to a private server. The pounding on the door was aggressive. Scott opened it to reveal Vivian flanked by 4 security guards, her face cold with rage. Step away from my son-in-law. He's not your anything, and you're trespassing. I have documentation proving Brandon Torres is married to my son. You're interfering with a mentally unstable Omega who needs medical care. I don't need help, I said, stepping beside Scott. I need the truth, and so does everyone else. The truth, Vivian laughed. The truth is you suffered a traumatic brain injury and developed delusions. The truth, a new voice cut in, is that you orchestrated a hit and run to cause that injury, paid the driver $50,000, bribed hospital staff another $100,000, forged marriage documents to trap an Omega in a fake relationship. Dorian stepped out of the stairwell, Christian beside him. But they weren't alone. Behind them stood 3 people in professional attire, 2 lawyers and a journalist with a camera crew. Vivian's composure cracked. Dorian, what have you done? What I should have done months ago. I'm giving an official statement about your crimes. It's being recorded and will be filed with the district attorney's office. I've also provided financial records, recorded conversations, and testimony from the hospital staff you bribed, who've agreed to testify in exchange for immunity. You ungrateful. We've also obtained security footage from the night of Brandon's accident, Christian added. The original footage your people tried to delete. It shows the driver deliberately targeting him. We have the driver in protective custody, and he's confirmed you hired him. The journalist stepped forward, camera rolling. Mrs. Fernandez, would you like to comment on allegations that you orchestrated an assault on an Omega to force your son into a fraudulent marriage? Vivian's face went white, then red. This is ridiculous. With what power? Dorian interrupted. I've already contacted the board of every company where you hold influence. Sent them your recorded conversations admitting to bribery, fraud, and conspiracy. Your reputation is finished. You can't do this to me. I'm your mother. You did it to control us, to own us. But we're not your property, mother. None of us are. One of the lawyers spoke up. Mrs. Fernandez, I'm Rebecca Okafor, representing Brandon Torres in a civil suit against you for assault, false imprisonment, emotional distress, and fraud. We're also filing criminal charges. The other lawyer nodded. And I'm James Morrison, representing Dorian Fernandez and Christian Park regarding coercion, blackmail, and threats. Vivian looked around wildly, realizing she was surrounded. Her security guards had backed away. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. I called the police 20 minutes ago, Christian said. Provided them with preliminary evidence. 2 police cars pulled up outside, officers emerging. Vivian made one last desperate grab for power. You're all going to regret this. I still have connections, resources. No, you have nothing. Because the one thing you never understood is that real power doesn't come from fear and control. It comes from the people who choose to stand with you. And no one chooses you, Mother. Not anymore. The officers entered, and Rebecca Okoro stepped forward, presenting documentation. Officers, this woman is wanted for questioning regarding assault, fraud, bribery, and conspiracy. As they began reading Vivian her rights, she looked at Dorian with pure venom. You're dead to me. Good. Because I was never really alive under your control. They led her away, still protesting, still trying to threaten. But her words had no power anymore. By evening, the story had broken across every major news outlet. Through it all, Scott never left my side. His hand in mine, his scent grounding me, reminding me that this was real. This was home. When the chaos finally quieted and we were alone in his apartment again, Scott pulled me close. I have something for you. He retrieved a small box from a drawer, opening it to reveal a simple silver band. I bought this 2 weeks before the accident. Was going to give it to you when we completed our bond. Tears blurred my vision. Scott, I know we need time. I know you're still recovering memories, still processing everything. But I want you to know, I never stopped loving you. Not for a single day. And when you're ready, if you're still ready, I want to complete what we started. I kissed him, pouring 2 years of forgotten love and 8 months of unconscious longing into it. When we broke apart, I pressed my forehead to his. I'm ready now. I've been ready. My body never forgot, Scott. It was trying to get back to you all along. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. He slipped the ring onto my finger. A perfect fit, like it had always belonged there, and kissed me again. This time slower, deeper, a promise of everything we'd almost lost and were finally reclaiming. 3 months later, I woke up in Scott's arms. Our arms, in our apartment overlooking the harbor. Not the sterile penthouse that had been my prison, but a real home filled with his photography equipment, my research notes, and the beautiful chaos of 2 lives genuinely intertwined. Our wedding had been small. City Hall, with Scott's family and a handful of friends who mattered. Dorian and Christian had stood as witnesses, the 4 of us bound now not by trauma, but by the friendship that had grown from surviving it together. Watching morning light filter through our curtains, Scott's steady breathing beside me, I felt the completeness I'd been searching for and never found. You're thinking too loud, Scott mumbled against my shoulder. I smiled. Just appreciating this. Beats your old place. That was never my place. No. He pulled me closer, his warmth surrounding me. This is. Later that week, Dorian and Christian met us for coffee at our favorite waterfront cafe. Dorian looked different, lighter, like he'd shed invisible weight. Christian's hand rested casually on his knee. No more hiding or fear. Vivian's trial concluded yesterday, Dorian said. 15 years. No parole eligibility for 7. I absorbed that. 15 years felt simultaneously too long and not long enough. We're getting married next month, Christian announced. Small thing. Just us and the people who stood by us. You'll be there. Obviously. Dorian looked at me across the table. Not with careful guilt, but with genuine friendship. Thank you. For understanding. For not hating me. We were both trapped. You helped me escape. That's what I'll remember. That evening, Scott and I walked along the waterfront where he'd watched me from a distance for months. Unable to stay away despite thinking he'd lost me. We stood there as the sun set over the harbor. 2 people who'd survived manipulation and cruelty and came out stronger. And grateful for my instincts that had led me back to Scott. To the life I'd almost lost but fought to reclaim. The end. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the story, tell us your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Until next time, keep daydreaming in BL.